Daniel, what are your thoughts on, firstly, the rhetoric and the last statement there about the UK should not be a refuge for people from Albania?
Well, the rhetoric that we're seeing has become incredibly hostile, and that is, I'm afraid, a fact of even Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister, was called out for this by senior Albanian officials. We have seen cases of children being bullied of this. I've met with Albanians who are terrified because of the hostility against them. That is coming down from the top, and that is a serious thing. And that is irrelevant of the numbers. I'm sorry, we can talk about how many Albanians are coming, how many aren't. There is no justification to use the type of language that has been used to discriminate against a specific group. You can say we need to be addressing these situations without increasing hostility against people based upon their nationality. And that's how we need to be looking at this. We need to de-escalate the language and start looking at this from a sensible, serious policy point of view, not a soundbite point of view, which is unfortunately the way that some politicians, some as Robert Jenrick, but also some just generally MPs, backbench included, are using to gain headlines. That can't be the way that we deal with policy. It has to be done in a measured, sensible manner. So we need to de-escalate that language because it is causing harm at the moment. And one of the knock-on effects that are causing harm, and we do see this, a lot of traffickers use coercive control. It's very similar to domestic violence. If you try and escape us, then this will happen to you. We're the only people you can rely on. When their victims are seeing the sort of language coming out about Albanians, it makes it easier for traffickers to apply that coercive control. Look how they're talking about you. You think you're going to be safe with them? You're better with us. And that has, particularly with children who are far more susceptible to this, that has serious, long-lasting repercussions. Now, we talk about gaming the system. Not every Albanian has a legitimate claim. That is undeniable. But the National Statistics Authority actually criticised the Home Secretary for using that terminology, specifically because there is no evidence that the increase has been down to people manipulating things, rather that we are getting better at recognising the victims of trafficking. That's something we should be celebrating. Unfortunately, at the moment, we actually have a bill passing through Parliament at the moment, which will make it far harder for the victims of modern slavery to be recognised. That means that trafficking gangs will be able to increase their grip, and that means more people are put at risk. So we're going backwards on that. Part of that backward step is the rhetoric being used. We need to be looking at this from a very policy point of view and a measured point of view, without hyperbolic statements.
Tim, any thoughts on Daniel's answer there?
If people are being bullied at school and prejudice is being shown, we don't want that to happen, and measures need to be taken. There are very few examples of any whole-scale persecution of Albanians who happen to be in the United Kingdom. So I think you are blowing this up out of all proportion.
I don't think so.
As
I think one is enough.
We welcome the Albanian.
I think one bullied child is enough, is unacceptable, personally, yes, based on this sort of rhetoric.
I agree, but that may be a bullied child from Afghanistan. It may be a bullied child from, yes, Syria. It may be a bullied child from Pakistan as well. It is not unique to Albania, and I really don't want to make this into a much bigger issue than it actually is.
You know, you say it's no, I'm not. I'm old enough to remember similar rhetorics being used against Polish people, Bulgarian people, Romanian people, Muslims. You know, it's different language, it's different sort of singling out, and it just seems to be recycled every few years when politics sort of hits a dead end, and we see this repeatedly.
Well, I just don't agree with that. The United Kingdom is one of the least racist countries in the in Europe, and I think you need to look to your own country where you are at the moment. So some of the problems there, we have problems in the United Kingdom, absolutely, but we have one of the most diverse and tolerant countries where we welcome many more nationalities, and it works well. So I think to judge us in that way is completely.
I'll send you some of the comments I'll send you some of the comments I've been sent on Twitter when I post about Albanians, and you can judge for yourself on that. Daniel, last word from you as well on this. Is the situation as bad as the British government's making out? Are things going to get better?
I don't think the situation is anywhere near as bad as the British government's making out. In general, because we've been talking about numbers here, the UK takes a very small proportion of asylum seekers overall, particularly when compared to the EU27. This is a situation of people needing protection. Now, we've seen historically more than half of Albanian asylum claims have been successful, and that is because there are legitimate grounds for people to seek asylum. Now, I can see Tim shaking his head there, but they have been granted that asylum. That is a recognition of the fact that they required that asylum.
These are completely artificial figures, and you know that. The current rate of asylum applications to Albanians is in the very low single figures. They were higher last year because the very large backlog, the Home Office was prioritising those higher risk groups, i.e. women and children, and therefore the asylum application success rate was much higher. Now it is tiny, so you cannot use over half. And look at other countries. 150,000 asylum applications to France last year. They grant under a third of them. We are far more generous. You are distorting the figures and trying to make out that we've got a closed door policy when we've anything but. But it's really important that we take on those people with genuine claims, those most at risk, and those also who can contribute to the UK economy most of all.
I'm not saying we are a closed door nation, but we are increasingly becoming that. We're also taking into account that we are passing legislation that will limit that. We passed legislation last year that made it harder for people to be recognised as asylum seekers.
Daniel, Tim, I feel that this is something that we could continue to discuss for a very long time. But I would say to both of you, if and when you are ever in Tirana, I would be, differences aside, delighted to buy you a coffee and a rakia, should you so wish. Thank you both for your time, and I'm sure we will cross paths again at some point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's all for this week. You can watch Inside Albania every Saturday at 4:30 or on our YouTube channel or across all major podcasting platforms. Inside Albania, vetëm me Euronews. Mirupafshim.